Welcome to another demonstration from Resolve. Today I'll be showing you how to use Resolve to manage Windows AppLocker. According to the 2019 Verizon Data Breach Report, about a third of all data breaches involve malware, and of those, where the installation method was known, 94% were delivered via email. Also, according to data from the 2016 to 2017 reports, about 7 to 10% of users were successfully phished. So that means that in an organization of 1,000 employees, approximately 100 would have been successfully phished and potentially compromised. And the costs of ransomware have been climbing year after year. In 2019, those costs are being estimated to be somewhere close to about $7.5 billion. So having an effective defense strategy could mean the difference between success or failure for your business. And while there may not be a single silver bullet to fix all security issues, implementing application whitelisting can be an effective layer in helping prevent unwanted software and ransomware from running on systems within your organization. There are several third-party whitelisting solutions to choose from. However, since the release of Windows 7, Microsoft has made application whitelisting natively available in certain editions of its operating system via the AppLocker service. However, one of the challenges with AppLocker is managing policies in a dynamic environment where software updates and security patches routinely change file signatures. In the following automation, I'll show how an administrator can implement and manage updates to AppLocker policies either on a local endpoint or via group policy. AppLocker allows for policies to be applied at the local security policy level on a given endpoint or to group policies that can be assigned to OUs or to the domain as a whole. It's often helpful to start testing your policies on a given machine, so leveraging those local policies, or to a limited number of machines within a test OU. In this case, what we're going to do, starting out within the console here, is get a list of the group policies that exist and store them for later use. We'll be able to then assign our AppLocker policies to these GPOs. We'll see here that the list of group policies has been returned. It found 3 group policies. We're going to move on to the next step in the process, which is to generate our initial application enforcement policy. Now, if you've already done this, then you can skip this step. However, it's advisable to, at least while you're developing out your policies, to have the system set to audit only. That's because once you generate a policy that allows or disallows any file, then Windows considers itself to be in enforcement mode. And if there's not a policy that is audit only, and then the system will block any file if it's not part of the AppLocker whitelist. So it's good to start out with audit only. You can set each one of these policies independently for as far as its enforcement mode, and then we can create the default rules for each of these types, and you can apply enforcement policies and default rules based on, if it's an AppX, like an application that you would install from the Microsoft Store, DLLs, EXEs, MSIs, and scripts. For performance and management reasons, Microsoft recommends not enabling DLL enforcement policies. However, if high security is your main concern, then DLL enforcement should be considered a must, as DLLs can be launched just like any other application through various utilities within Windows. So once we have all of our settings that we want as part of our policy, we just need to specify where we want to save that policy file to. And that can be an environment variable within PowerShell or hard-coded path and then just specify the name of the file that you want to save it as. In this case, we're just going to save it as effective AppLocker enforcement policy. So we'll go ahead and generate that policy, and we're going to use that policy in the next steps within our automation. So we see that the policy was created successfully here. So we're going to move on to the next step within our automation here to apply these policies. And now the first thing that we need to do is get a list of policies, retrieve that from any given system and directory. And so we're going to go ahead and type that in here. And then we just click Get Policies. It's going to reach out to that system, and it's going to query that directory for any XML files here that we can apply to our group policy or local policies. In this case, we've got a number of policies that came back that we'll be able to use in our next step. So what we need to do is click back on step 3 and go to our second option here of applying policies. And in this case, it's going to have the list of those policies that we found in that temp directory. And I'm going to select, say, this one for sysinternals that I created. We need to specify a computer name from which to launch this task, and then whether or not we want to apply that to a local policy or group policy. And this is where we collected those policies prior. So I'm going to select my test application policy. You have the option to either overwrite the existing policy the group policy that's out there, or merge the settings within this policy to the existing policy. In this case, we're going to just select merge, and we're going to apply that policy. And once that policy finishes importing, we'll get our response back here. It queries for the effective policy once that policy has been imported, and we can click into this policy and see what all rules are within that group policy. If it happens to be a local policy, it'll query that off of the local machine as well. You can append your AppLocker policy with additional files to allow by specifying the computer name where those files exist and where you're going to save the policy file to. Additionally, then point it to a directory where the files that you want to add to the whitelist live, and if it has any subdirectories, whether or not to recurse those directories. You can choose the file type. It could be exe, script, fx, dll, and then the rule type that you want to create. A publisher rule, so anything published by Microsoft certificate, or a hash rule, so based on the SHA-256 value of the file. And you can create a combination of files here. You can also generate path rules as well. Just use caution there, as anything that lives within that path will be allowed to run. Next, specify a rule prefix name. This is just a grouping within the policy, so you can easily identify your files, and then what users or user groups are allowed to run those files, and then just click the execute button. Now we'll reach out to that directory, parse through any executable type files, and generate a policy XML file that can be used to import to your existing policies. To apply the policy that you just created to your existing group policies or local policies, simply go back to get the list of policy files, specify the system and the location, and click the Get Policies button. Once this automation completes, come back to step 3 and choose Apply Policies. Specify the computer name where we want to run this. Specify if this is to be a local or a group policy, what a policy to apply this to, and what policy file to merge. Looking at the resultant set here, we should see the rules that we just imported into the existing policy. To summarize, malware is on the rise and it's costing industry a lot. Application whitelisting can be an effective mechanism in a layered defense, and although Microsoft provides AppLocker natively in some editions of their Windows operating system, they don't necessarily provide the most efficient tools for managing an effective whitelisting policy without a lot of effort. Resolve Automation can automate a number of the tasks and processes required to implement and manage an AppLocker policy. We created an initial AppLocker policy, applied that policy to a group policy object, and appended the base policy with additional applications we wish to authorize. Thank you for watching another video of Resolve, where we're combining AI ops and advanced IT automation into one game-changing, powerful platform for all enterprises.